Alrighty. Hello, everyone. Oh, hey, Todd. This is the fun part where Todd has forgotten to unmute his microphone. We had a side bet going here that he lost, apparently, as to which one of us was going to forget to unmute which part of our microphone. So he's forgotten to unmute it from the top green microphone button. So let's see if we have it now.
There are so my headset unmutes, the software unmutes, the people running the thing unmute. I was unmuted about 6 different ways. I only got 5 of them.
That's okay.
But good afternoon, Jason.
Hey, how are you?
Doing well.
This is
doing well.
It is 4 o'clock Eastern time, which means that I've been going since 4 o'clock a.m. Central time this morning because I had to hop an airplane to get out here. Let's see, it's over on this side. You can sort of see where I'm at. I can't figure out how to point to things with the webcam. I'm visiting.
That way's north, if that helps.
I'm a visitor in our Cincinnati office today here at Rackspace, and I may or may not have displaced someone who has lots of cows lying around on his office desk. So,
like this one.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's that one too. We have that one here too. So Shane was kind enough to allow me to usurp his space to be able to do this webinar with you today. So a lot of fun. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump into our deck, I guess.
Yep, the deck we so lovingly crafted. In the wee hours of last night.
Yes. So today, Lyman is amazing. I will say props to him. I don't know how he does it. He puts up with us. We come in at the last second with all of our shenanigans and stuff. So thank you, Lyman, for being awesome, and Eric as well, and obviously everyone at IT Unity. We love you guys very much, so thank you guys. But today our focus is going to be how do you implement Azure Active Directory, Connect, and more in Office 365 in that space. So we have a bunch of stuff for you. But before we do that, let's do a quick intro. For those who don't know us, let you do your own intro.
So that picture is back from my modeling days, being a suit and tie model. I'm Todd Klindt. I work for Rackspace. I'm a SharePoint MVP, and I think we counted last time I've been a SharePoint MVP for 10 years now, which is kind of cool, a little sad. I need to think about some life decisions that I've made, but that just means, like all the other MVPs out there, I do a lot of support, talking on forums and blog posts and all that kind of stuff. Like, I'm very passionate, like to talk about SharePoint. Do speaking, writing books, consulting, things like that. I've got a blog at toddklindt.com/blog. I also do a weekly podcast. I do that on Monday nights at 8:30 Central. It has been done from that very office, though by a much less handsome or intelligent individual, Shane Young. He fills in for me sometimes. But you can find out about that at toddklindt.com/netcast. And I also have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/toddklindt.netcast. And that's also where we put a video that has the homework we assigned you guys. There's a video out on that channel that tells you how to walk through all that. So that, in a nutshell, is me, all about me.
All right, so the other guy, I am the other guy. My name is Jason Himmelstein. I also am a SharePoint MVP, a lesser SharePoint MVP. I will say I only have 2 disks on my little thingy. I don't have the 10 that Mr. Klindt has here, or that Mr. Young, I'm stealing his office, has. I think he said he has 11. That he's going for number 11 this year.
He's going, yeah. So he has been in my MVP date is July. His is the previous October. So he beat me by 9 months.
Yeah. There you go. I am the Office 365 Advisory Services Manager at Rackspace. I'm also an IT Pro enthusiast. Anything geeky in IT Pro I do tend to enjoy. There have been a bunch of tweets and Facebook posts about my office. Seeing as we just moved, my office has lots of monitors and So that's been going around on the interwebs this week. I love playing with BI, the business intelligence stack, Power BI, big passion of mine. Looking forward to talking about that at an upcoming conference in the Boston area. And in general, I'm just a technology geek fanboy. I do tend to write, and not as much as I should, certainly not as much as Todd does, but my blog is starting to pick up where I left off. I have a whole bunch of stuff that will get published in the next couple of days following this whole netcast, podcast, recording, webinar thingy that we're doing in advance of part 3. We opted to go with a GitHub repo and a video instead of posting everything out in text. So we will follow up and do that. I owe that out there. I'm a recently reinstalled Texan, just moved to San Antonio, been there a week, and I'm already back out on the road. And I'm a diehard Spurs, Longhorns, and yes, a Jaguars fan. You can find me on SharePointLonghorn.com, SharePoint Lhorn on the Twitters. And, you know, last week there was some defaming of me. Todd started the hashtag Jason Smells. I'm monitoring that one this time. I was prepared for it this time, so I'm watching, and I hold grudges, folks. Just so you know,
Worldwide
my GitHub
trending
repo,
topic on Twitter.
So my GitHub repo, github.com/Jason Himmelstein, is where you'll find the IT Unity /webinar content that we're going to play with as a part of the pre-stuff that you find out on Todd's YouTube channel, as well as some of the other stuff that we're going to go through today. So let's do a quick bit of shameless self-promotion. We are both going to be at a couple of conferences at the same time in the same place, specifically SP TechCon coming up in Boston in a mere few weeks away. I probably should get my slides done, huh? Yeah. So they're hounding us for that. So you can use the discount code Rackspace for that, and that'll be August 24th to the 27th. SharePoint-a-Looza in lovely Branson, Missouri. Again, it's no Iowa, but it's pretty awesome. September 18th and 19th. Come out and join us there. Very few, very few. And lastly, Dev Intersections. If you use the discount code Klindt, I think it gets you like $200 off right now. And there's some really good content out there. We'll be out at all 3 of those events.
Yeah, or it may get you barred from life from that conference. I've seen it go either way. So yeah, I'm watching you my name.
And Klindt is easier to spell and remember than Himmelstein, so I just figure that's always.
And it's not often I'm in situations where my name is the easy one to spell. Yeah. So thanks for that, Jason. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, sir. So, quick agenda for us here. We're going to do a very brief review of what we went through the last time. I don't want to dwell on it. You can go back and watch the recording here on IT Unity. We'll talk about a couple of the use cases, the things that bring us to think about using Azure AD and Office 365. Why would we do some of these things? Then we're going to go through a review of some of the homework and prereqs in order to make this stuff work. And then it's going to be all demo. After the demo, we will do Q&A. Now, we have to be honest, Todd. I think we have to be honest with the folks here in our chat room.
I don't promise that at all, though.
Well, at least on this one thing. So to make sure that we're providing you with the best quality content possible, we went ahead and did all of these things and pre-recorded a portion of what we're going to show you today. And so we will dump into that video, and we will be here in the chat room answering questions as we go. But we want to make sure you do understand. In order to make sure that we're showing you the proper way to do this, we had to do some pre-recording. We trimmed it for time so it all fits into a nice hour-long block. Otherwise, we would be here for a little bit longer than that. Not too much longer, but a little bit longer than that. So we're going to do some server reboots and things like that. You'll see it. We let you know in the video where we snip some things as well. But we'll dump to that here after a couple more slides. But today really is focused on that demo and want you guys to be able to take a look at that and understand it so that if you want to do the hard part, which is going to be in part 3, you can come back and join us having done this, the awesomeness that is Azure AD Connect.
Yeah, and for your viewing pleasure, when the video starts, dim the lights. If you don't have popcorn already, you're going to want to pop some popcorn. And then in the upper right-hand corner of the video module, there's going to be a thing that looks all very nautical or whatever. That makes the video full screen, and that'll make it easier for you to read all the amazing PowerShell that Jason and I ran to make this work. So make sure to full screen that.
Now, not all of you have the pleasure of sitting in Shane's office. He's got a disco ball up here, so I'll be turning that on when the time comes. So that's how I'm going to be enjoying our video for the day. So
I'm going to be playing some Xbox. That's keeps me from nodding off at the sound of my own voice. I just kind of.
in all seriousness, we will be in the chat room here answering whatever questions you have as they come. So if you were hoping for dev-focused conversation, make sure you go out and check out the Microsoft Cloud Show. In addition to the one that I'm talking about here, right now, talking about the Paul Schaeflein interview, they recently did an interview with, a friend of ours, Mr. Scott Hogue, talking about application proxy and some other really good stuff around Azure. So if you're looking for that, make sure you get out there, take a listen. Scott did a great job. I listened to that on my flight this morning. Really good interview. And it was CJ doing the lead-in, but AC doing the actual interview because AC didn't have a voice. So anyway, rules for today: do as we say, don't do as we do. This is important. We're going to tell you some things that we're doing. This is for demo purposes. We wanted to show you everything. We're doing this in the slimmest way possible to make sure that everything works. You're going to want to make sure that when you do this for a production environment, you follow best practices. We'll talk to some of those. We'll definitely talk about them in part 3, but make sure that you follow best practices and don't just do things because you say, well, I saw Todd do it and that Jason guy was there too. So ask questions in the chat room. We will be monitoring that and answering them as we go. I can't, Lori, I can't do German, so unless we can have Bing Translate do that for us, we're going to be out of luck. Be patient as the video runs. There are some things that take a little bit more time than others, and pray with us and hope that the cloud gods do everything right. So, Todd, you want to talk to this slide for just a moment?
Well, so this is the reason that we're all here together is to get all of these different identity stores into Azure Active Directory through the wonderful tool Azure AD Connect, which the whole demo is going to be setting that up. But then once you get in there, it opens up this whole new world for you. Of course, all the things we know and love, SharePoint Online and Azure and all that kind of stuff. But once you get your stuff in there, then you can also use Salesforce and Dropbox and all these other great things. And So this is why this is so important, why we're spending all this time, is so that once you get these identities into Azure AD, you can use them all over. And this is the part that we're going to show.
All right. That's our recap from our previous webinar. A couple of the use cases that we wanted to point out here. If you have an old environment that is already existing, you already have your Active Directory set up. It's been set up for years and years. Azure AD Connect has some really nice functionality to it that allows you to do some filtering. You're going to do the ID fix tool. You're going to make sure all those things work. But when you're trying to bring an old environment and move it into a new estate, an estate being multiple farms, multiple environments, all of that, you want to make sure that things are as clean as you can bring them. But in order to make sure that happens, a lot of times as we're bringing content over from one SharePoint environment into SharePoint Online, we lose fidelity with the identity that's there. So Azure AD Connect will help with that. It'll help bring all of those GUIDs up into Azure AD so that we can sync all of those identities and know who the content belongs to. When it comes to new farm identities, Todd, do you want to take this one?
Well, I think when we're setting up new farms, we need to, a year ago, 10 years ago, when we set up new farms, it was all Windows AD, and it was all very simple, and we didn't have to think about it too much. And now we've got some options. And so when we're doing all this Azure AD stuff, and you're seeing how all these identities mix and match, it's time to go back to the drawing table. And when we're setting up new farms and setting up new companies or new Windows environments, begin with the end in mind, that whole Stephen Covey thing, and think about what our new options are. And that's, if we've got an old farm, You're using Windows identities, things like that. If you're setting up a new farm and you know about the Azure AD thing, maybe you want to set up a federated identity instead, because SharePoint looks at those identities differently. So it's tough to to migrate them over. But if you're setting up a new farm, maybe you skip the Windows identities, you just do the ADFS deal. Again, something we didn't have to think about before. And guys like Jason and I, we've been doing this IT thing and Windows thing and SharePoint thing for a long time. And we get set in our ways. We like to yell at kids when they come on our yard, things like that. But we've kind of got this new frontier. And so think about this when you're setting up new farms. Do we want to do ADFS? Do we want to do Azure? Things like that. And part of the reason that that's important is the last bullet point there, the extranet situations. This is one of the things that we've wanted to do with SharePoint forever. Is it's a great internal thing, but there's always just that little nugget of great stuff we want to share with a customer or a contractor or something. And that's always made us do some really horrible IT things, open up firewall ports and put external people in our internal AD and all kinds of horrible things. And there was just no great way to do that before. And now we've got this ability, if we can take our on-prem farm, make that our internal folks only, put our extranet folks out in Office 365, SharePoint Online, get our identities mixed up so that customer identity, that extranet identity only exists out in the cloud and they have no way to get back in. We have those options now. We have good options now. So that's another way that we can leverage Azure AD. There's just a lot of fun things we used to not be able to do that we can do now. So we kind of want to challenge you guys to rethink your assumptions when you're setting stuff up.
So prereqs for today, as you go through and as we start to build everything out, a couple things that you have to have in order to make all of this work. And we talked about this as the homework for last session, and we're giving you all the links here. Again, I'm going to put this all out on SlideShare. Make sure that that the links show up as well in the resources here as also. But you need an Office 365 tenant. In order to do what we're going to show you how to do here in a little bit, you are going to need a registered domain URL. We're using GoDaddy. Have 30 or 40 URLs registered, domains registered with GoDaddy, so it's easy to pick one. We're going to use JHTK Fun, as our domain. And remember, JHTK Fun. I believe that we're going to put some of these links out on Todd's blog. I believe we were going to put it out at www.toddklindt.com/JHTKFun. Was that the URL that we were going to use,
Yeah, I
Todd?
haven't set that up. Yeah, I haven't set that up yet, but I think that's a good place for it. And I feel bad, you and I you bought the domain JHTK Fun, and I think that's going to get people too excited about what's actually there. I didn't want to get people's hopes up, but it's probably a lot less fun than it sounds.
Yeah. So in addition, you need two virtual machines or machines. You can have hardware if you really, really want to. If you have some old laptops lying around, that might work for this. They're going to need to be on the same virtual network, so they can talk to one another. One's going to be an Active Directory domain controller. One's going to be a member server that we're going to install all the PowerShell tools as well as Azure AD Connect onto. The other thing that we're doing here is we did install the role, just the role, thanks Lori Gowan, for the AD, DS, the ADDS role for directory services, so that we can use the management tools from the member server. We did not make it a domain controller, but we are able to actually use that and make it a member server and run the role there also. So those are where our prereqs for today.
Yeah, and so Jason and I, in the demo, we installed every piece of PowerShell, everything that we could. We don't end up using much of it in the demo, but we both really like PowerShell, and so it seemed like a good thing. Now, to pimp a session that I'm doing next Tuesday, so the 11th, I'm doing a session for the Mississippi PowerShell user group, and I'm thinking that's like msspug.org or .com or .local or something, but it's all on how to use PowerShell with Office 365 and Azure. So while we won't give you a taste of that here in this session, I will do that Tuesday night, and that's an online deal. You don't have to be in Mississippi. I'm not going to be, and it'll all be on that.
Yes. And Scott in the chat room is also, thank you, Scott, for being here again, is mentioning that if you're doing this install on Windows Server 2012 R2, you may need the beta version. Actually, I used the release to web and it worked just fine, Scott, but just in case you're looking for it, if you have any issues, follow along with what Scott's saying there. In part 3, we will probably go into a lot more of these PowerShell things. That's why we installed them now. So that's what we're going to do from a prereqs perspective. Here's what we're actually going to do as a part of the demo. Already done, we have created our Active Directory domain. We've created the server to join the domain. We're going to run our prep script. You can find all of that out in the GitHub repo. And we're going to join to the domain. We're going to install the PowerShell management tools. We're going to install Azure AD Connect. We're going to configure Office 365 to sync with an on-prem Active Directory. Then we're going to configure Azure AD Connect to sync those accounts. We're going to validate the accounts, and we're even going to create a new account and perform a manual sync. So, with no further ado, unless you have some ado you want to do, we're going to jump in and show you this demo.
Normally I do ado, but I think we've gotten people excited about this, so I think we should just jump into it.
All righty. All right, so just a quick edit to my script for prepping Windows Server. I added in this DNS region, which goes out and grabs the, it asks you what the DNS of your AD controller is, what the IP address is. You pop that in. It'll show you what your current settings are. It'll show you what you've set those settings to. Just one more thing. This version of it's a little bit out of date compared to what's already in the GitHub repo, so it does it a little bit nicer than this as well.
Yeah, for those of you listening, this was Jason's white whale. He couldn't let this go. So for the last 24 hours, he's dedicated his life to this. His family is starved and all that, but that's his dedication to his craft.
Yeah, that you'll notice once the server reboots what the timestamp is. The timestamp is inaccurate right now because it's on GMT time. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning when I was working this particular one through. So this is part of our recorded set. So let's see, we're going to move along and actually go off and run that. I always run as administrator. When you run as administrator, you actually get full access into the system itself.
Yeah.
You grab off the desktop and new server prep. You'll see this run really fast. Here's the IP address that I want to pop in.
Paste that little bugger in there.
All right, so I'm going to grab the public IP. I'm doing this on the Rackspace public cloud servers.
As well you should.
As well I should. So I'm changing it from 10.1. You'll notice that now the server address is appropriately set for my DNS entry.
Yep.
Alrighty. And now, if I zip back down, the next thing it's going to ask me to do is to change my server name. These are my my little trash servers. We're going to be using different servers as we go along for the rest of this webinar. We wanted to make sure that we showed you how the sausage was made. So the trash servers were my way of making sure that we showed you that. So Bob's Burgers, an homage to sausage being made. Now we need to reboot the server. A little Camtasia magic. Pow! Actually,
voila.
The Rackspace public cloud servers just really fast.
Just boot that fast.
Really
this
fast.
Reminds me of those cooking shows, you know, where they make it all and they put it in the oven and they pull it out and it's done. It's just cheating, all of it.
Yep. So here we go. So the server's now booting back up after its DNS change, after the name change, after the time change. You'll notice 1:28 a.m. This is how dedicated we are to you. Todd was
I'm
busy.
not. I was sawing logs. I was dreaming about unicorns at 1:28 a.m.
I was going to be giving some good lies for you there, man, but you blew your own cover.
I appreciate that.
So,
these people are too good. I can't lie to them.
All right, there you go. So we now see our computer name is AADC001. We're still a part of a work group, though, so we need to go ahead and join the domain. So we're going to pop into PowerShell. Now, I've posted a script up into the GitHub repo that actually will prompt you for some information here. I'm going to do an add computer, and then I'm going to give it the flag of domain name. And I'm going to set it to Bob's Burgers.
Yeah, so I think as an IT pro, I never let go an opportunity to show off in PowerShell something that I could do. Because we could have done this in the UI, and everybody knows how to do it in the UI. Doing it in PowerShell, that's what the cool kids do.
There you go. So now I have to give it my my super secret password and username here for Bob's Burgers. Nobody ever expects administrator. So, and now it's going to go off and it will join me to the domain. You'll see that pop up here in just a second. My script does all this for you. We'll do a restart dash computer here. I learned that from Todd.
And the way he learned that was him and I were walking through this, and he rebooted the machine by clicking the UI, and I mocked him heartily.
I was shamed. I was shamed. There's
Yep.
our server coming back up after joining the domain now. And we're going to give it just a second here to do its hoodoo. And here we are. So now we come in, we take a look at our local server, and you will notice here in just a second that it is going to be a part of the Bob's Burgers domain.
And there it is.
There we go. So bobsburgers.com, fully qualified domain, not owned by me, however. I believe that's still owned by Fox. So as long as it's on the air, once they cancel that show, I'm sure it'll be up for grabs pretty quick.
They won't renew it. You can find your internet fame that way.
There you go. So now the next thing we need to do is to go ahead and install Azure AD Connect. We're going to go off. I've already got the URL in my my buffer, so we're going to paste that in. I'm going to skip over this guy. Say, don't really want to set those, and paste it in, pop it up, do a quick download. This is nice and small, quick and easy. Download quickly.
Yeah, and one thing, so this is a demo environment, so Jason and I are taking some shortcuts. In a production environment, you should probably download this on another box and copy it over. But we didn't want to set up 13 VMs for all this, but that's a best practice.
Yes. Don't do as we say. Don't do as we do. There should be a slide for that somewhere at the beginning of this deck.
Exactly.
So, all right, we're going to go ahead and do the installation here. I like to do installations by right-clicking personally, going off and installing as administrator if there's an option for it. In this particular case, there's not. It's just an install.
Well, so that's going to kick off the Windows installer, which runs as an elevated process. So you're getting all that admin goodness.
So this takes a long time, and it's already done. So with that, we are done with the, and there we go, popped right up for us. We are done with the installation portion of this. We're now ready to go off and do some config. But you know what? There are a couple more installation pieces we have to do, Todd. Some PowerShell goodness, some helper functions that we're going to need to make sure that using our new servers, we're going to switch over to my other servers. You'll notice here in just 1 second. We're now on the AAD Connect box, and this is the jhtkfund.com domain. We're no longer in Bob's Burgers. We are now in an owned domain. So we have an SSL cert. We have all of that goodness, and we also can go off and create our Azure Active Directory and be able to own that. So a couple things that I wanted to show how the sausage is made here. Again, when I run my PowerShell profile script, I do a lot with CSOM and Office 365. You'll see some prompts come up. I pop all the DLLs into a folder called DLL in my PowerShell scripts folder, and I also use these other scripts here, the add CSOM reference libraries, the connect Azure subscription, the set O365 connection, and set SPO connection. So those are scripts that run in the background in my PowerShell profile. I wanted to show how that was done. Now we're going to go off and do some installations here. This is the Microsoft Online Sign-In Assistant setup. You must do this. If you're going to do anything through PowerShell with Office 365, it is a requirement. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Now, the Azure AD Connect actually will do that one for you, as well as the IT Pro Sign-In. There are two that it actually does for you. Personally, I like to make sure that all of my prereqs are done, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I do all of these manually. Here's my SharePoint Online Management Shell setup. This pops in all of my MSOL and all of the SPO functions. All that goodness in here now is now going to show up. I can import those modules, dropping them into Recycle Bin as a trash folder for me. So, and here's the Azure Active Directory module for PowerShell as well. So all of the stuff that I'm going to want to do long term, it's all going to come out from this. So because I use my PowerShell profile, I don't let it stick that icon on the desktop for me. Here we go. And
yeah, and like Jason said, you don't need these for this stuff to work, but as you start fooling around in here and increasing your skills, you're going to want them installed.
This one's actually for the Microsoft Web PI. This is for if you're dealing in Azure, any of the other parts of Azure other than Azure AD, you're going to want this in here as well. So if you're managing VMs, if your servers happen to be not in the awesome Rackspace public cloud, but instead are in the amazing Microsoft Azure, virtual machine section, the infrastructure as a service, you're going to need this in order to be able to interact with those VMs. So we're going to go ahead and do that installation as well. Nice, quick, and easy. Blazingly fast download speeds.
Rackspace does have a decent internet pipe going to its data centers. I love whenever anybody gets like a new FiOS or something, they go to speed test and they put up a screenshot, and then I go to one of my hosted machines and I go to speed test and I put up a screenshot. They cry.
Alrighty, so now we are on our AD Connect box. We are logged in as Jace on the JHTK Fun domain. Just going to make sure that I am on the domain. I'm going to pop through here and do a, one thing that I did on this box is I went ahead, even though I don't need it to be a domain controller, I went ahead and added the role. I did not do a DC promo to make this a domain controller, but I wanted to be able to have the management tools, and in order to get those, I needed the role installed. So I am able to do a get-AD domain. Now I'm going to log into Office 365 using our admin account for the jhtkfun.onmicrosoft.com domain.
Yep, and this is kind of just to show the before picture, so you can see what things looked like before we set up the sync and where the tools were at and all that kind of stuff. It's good to know what it looked like before all of our success.
Here we go. Now that I have my username and password in my buffer, paste that in. I am going to follow a best practice and not remember my password. So, especially for a global admin account, probably a bad idea.
Look at that beauty, and look at that all green. Everything is perfect in the world of Azure and Office 365.
So following through, we don't do anything basic, do we,
No.
Todd?
No. Always advanced setup. Basic is for suckers.
Yeah. So we're going to follow the advanced setup here, and you know what? I don't even want to take any chances. I want to make my own selections.
Always the hard way with this guy.
Yeah. So as we go through, it's going to give us a bunch of options here. Because we're doing this as a demo, and specifically we're just trying to show you folks in an hour or less with as little blabbering as possible out of me, which hasn't happened yet, but we're going to try.
We're waiting. I have a lot of faith.
I'm going to go ahead and select to sync my users for my on-prem domain. I'm not going to do ADFS yet. We'll do that in part 3 maybe. We're still figuring that one out. And you know, I already own my domain, so I'm going to click on using my own domain, add or buy your own domain. I already own it, so I'm good there. I'm not going to set web conferencing. I'm not going to migrate email. I'm not going to do anything with SharePoint. Don't worry. There's plenty of goodness to be done with SharePoint Online. We're just not going to do any of that as a part of this today. So I'm going to click Accept here, and we do a little dance.
And for those of us who've been doing this for a while, the tools have gotten so much better. There is so much less swearing now than there was even a year ago when you did this.
This is one of those things that surprised me when I got here the first time. They actually have a health, readiness, and connectivity check that works. So we're going to go ahead and run through that. Couple of points. There are some pop-ups here, so you have to make sure your pop-up blocker doesn't block them. You are going to need to be able to do a click once install, so make sure your security settings are set properly here. If you're using Firefox, those security settings, surprisingly, in IE. So I'm going to run the click once application. I've set it so I can download files. It's off and running. Going to do the goodness here, pulling this out of some Azure Blob storage. And here we are. Let's go ahead and run this puppy.
And don't underestimate the value of running these health checks. This stuff, and we're going to talk about it later, but like the AD remediation stuff, this is here for a reason. This will save you some pain.
All right. So these things, believe it or not, don't take all that long. It may seem like it's taken a long time, and I did do a little bit of snipping here. You'll see, you may have a slower experience than what you're seeing on the screen right now. Todd and I wanted to make sure that we had all of this, no demo fails other than my fat fingers.
Keeping it. The other thing, this seems longer just because you have to listen to us while it's going on. It will go much more smoothly when you're not listening to us in your ear when it's happening.
All right, so we're doing a couple of port checks here. Things going off, doing a couple ping outs, some echoes.
Send one ping and one ping only.
I trust the chat room knows what that, what movie reference that is. That would be Fletch, ladies and gentlemen, Fletch. That was for Eric Riz, not Fletch. All right, so we already have our results and everything passed. How about that? You can save this off as an XML, but for right now, just for the sake of doing some demo for you folks, we're just going to take a look through. I'm going to click through all of these. Everything passed. It's telling us that we can connect up to all of these servers. Now, if when you saw that dashboard that was all green, if things are not green out there, you may have some issues here. So just be aware. It may not be that you don't have access. It may actually be that there's a problem with the service. So check the dashboard before you get started as well. But our current health looks really good. So we finished that. We're going to come back out now that we're done. We're going to come back to our advanced settings. And now, I personally think this is out of order, Todd. I don't know about you. I want my custom domain set up before I sync my users and passwords from an on-premises domain. I want all of that set. So we're going to do that. We're going to skip it, and we're going to use our jhtkfun.com domain. I don't know about you. I own all too many domains.
I've probably got 30 of them that are all great ideas that I will never do that will make me millions on the internet. But
as a result of that, I am going to have to blur out my username because I do a lot of stuff using this GoDaddy account. For those of you who are wondering, yes, my password is all stars.
Yes, and this is one of the things, you don't have to have your domain registered with GoDaddy, but if you do, that's one of the things I've got this set up. This is going out and it's verifying that he owns JHTK Fun. And it's also putting some records in DNS, and that's how it's testing it. So you can go out and you can look, there's some verify records, text records out in DNS, and that's what it's doing now.
So real quick, I didn't see any messages that told me that it worked. So I'm going to pop in here and make sure, domain already exists. I've already validated. I am good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out. And I want to go check it out and make sure that everything is working properly, that everything is set up. So I'm going to go back into my domains page, check it out. Looks like there are a couple of things that still need to be done. For anybody who did this, I don't know, 3 months ago, 6 months ago, this is a new experience for us. Lots of really nice screens here. It used to be a pop-up window that was ugly and didn't give you a whole lot of information. Here we can actually add users. We verified the domain. We can get the domain set up. It's going to pop up, and we'll take a look through. Here are the things that it's going to set up for me. Again, I'm not setting up SharePoint Online right now. When you do that, there's another record that you'll have to go in and register. You come back in here and take care of that. But here's all the records that it's going to post in for me. I can validate them, make sure I'm happy with them.
Yep, and so these are things like auto-discover if you're setting up Outlook for Exchange Online. It's not showing you the verified domain text record that it already created, but one of the things, if you don't get the pop-ups like Jason was talking about, you can go to your registrar and look at your DNS, and you can see that it's been written in there.
Todd, I think they were 5 stars today, huh?
5 for sure. I couldn't be happier with my experience with GoDaddy and Office 365.
That's a nice little partnership they've got going on. And now our setup is complete for our domain. I'm pretty thrilled. So let's come back in here to our advanced setup. Let's go ahead and step through that sync setup here. First thing I'm going to have to do is skip down to number 3. We've already done 1 and 2. I need to activate my Active Directory synchronization. It's very hard.
Yeah, and another thing that we kind of glossed by there is, notice after we added one domain, we could add multiple domains. So that kind of gives you an idea what the flexibility for this is. You can add multiple ADs and things like that. It's not just one.
So to activate this, I have 2 click buttons to hit. There's the second one. Active Directory synchronization is now activated, so now I can go through. Now, we talked about the ID Fix tool. I'm going to show you this. I'm going to download it. I'm going to open it up. Very easy to get, very easy to download. We're not going to go through any of this today. There are things, make sure you know what you're doing before you walk through this. We have a perfectly clean AD. well, except for the fact that Todd and my accounts are in it. It's a brand new clean Active Directory, so there's nothing really to fix. So I'm not going to walk through any of this other than simply showing you the screens and popping it open. We do want to export, expand all of this. Here you go. It's a very pretty interface, very Office 365 blue. Almost an Azure color, I'd say.
Yeah, Azure. And this is, we're not running it here because this domain has nothing in it, but by all means, for an AD that's been around, that's got real accounts, there's all kinds of creepy crawlies in your domain that you don't know about, so please run that.
All right, so now we have our accounts ready. We're going to create our Azure Active Directory at this point. I'm going to go ahead and enter my super secret star password here. Grab that on my clipboard. There we go. Again, not going to save the password. Don't do that. And at this point, I actually have to create it. Now, I am using very little Camtasia magic here, folks. I'm going to blur out my cell phone number. Nobody needs to be calling me. That's just not, you don't want that.
If you need Jason's cell phone number, Donald Trump would be happy to give it to you. So
absolutely.
Just ask him, yeah.
So this does take about 4 minutes. I found it takes between 3 and 5, somewhere in there. That's usually 4. So just to speed this up, I did zoom it a little bit, snip the video for you. Now we're going to jump into managing the service. Now, if you have an MSDN account, you already have an Azure account, you can add this into your tenant. You can create an Active Directory, the whole 9 yards. We're creating a blank one. This is meant to be educational and educational only, not actually production.
Yeah, and Azure AD accounts are free for the basic stuff, for the Azure AD Basics. So even if you don't have MSDN, you can create this for free.
So, and you can try out. You can get a trial of Azure Premium, Azure Active Directory Premium. So here we go. We are verified. We are not planned for single sign-on at this point, and it is our primary domain, the jhtkfun.com domain. We're fun guys.
I know I'm a fun guy.
So right here, this you don't want to do. See that? That's DirSync. Bad. Microsoft, you need to take that out, Microsoft. So number 5, we're going to skip 5, we're going to skip 6, and we're going to skip 7. We're going straight into the Azure Active Directory Connect. And again, do we like Express settings? No, we don't. We're going to do customize. We're going to skip over this express stuff, and we're going to get into all of the hard stuff.
Always the hard way.
Although we are using a UI here, Todd, I'm just saying.
It's for the benefit of the people watching the video.
So we've talked about what configuration settings you might use here, whether you're going to use an existing SQL server, if you're going to let this use the local Express, all of that. We're going to click on specify a custom install location here. We're not going to mess with it. I just wanted to take a look at where it is.
Exactly. Now, yeah, just because I know that once we get this installed, we're going to want to get in there and fool around. So I just want to know where.
Yeah. So since we're not doing a SQL server, we're just going to leave this alone.
Yeah. You need the SQL server if you've got, more than 50,000 users, I think is where they tell you to start using SQL Server.
Yeah, and then you have to have a DBA. And
nobody likes those guys.
No. Very few DBAs out there that are, lovable and cuddly. They all have beards, though. I have a beard. Though.
Oh, geez, I'm in trouble.
All right. So we have our sync account here. We're going to use this account now. In order for this to work and be able to replicate our accounts and our passwords, we are going to have to delegate some permissions. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is us going in to the top level of the Active Directory, selecting this user. We're going to skip ahead and we're going to create a custom task to delegate. We right-clicked on the top level of the domain, went to Delegation Control Wizard, and here we go. We're going to jump down and we're going to go find two specific settings. Here we are. It's under General.
Yep.
And if we flow down just a little bit, we're going to select Replicating Directory Changes and Replicating Directory Changes All.
Yeah, and these settings sound scary, but really all they're doing is giving this account the ability to read the change log for the Active Directory so that it doesn't have to sync every user every single time it runs.
All right, so that's done. So now I'm going to flip back over to my other server. And here we are. So now that service account password, I've entered my stars. I have my sync.
Yep. And let's talk for a second. That account, even though we're going to use it for the same thing, that is just the account the services are running as, not the account that's actually going to talk to AD. But Jason and I are using the same account for both, and so that's why he gave it that permission.
Again, some shortcuts. Thank you, Todd. Now, we're not going to sync any custom groups at this point. Just wanted to pop it open to see what was here. You can, Todd, do you want to talk to this for just a second about what these groups are?
Yeah, so this is a way to delegate a permission, and we're not going to do that here. But you could have people who can reset passwords but not do anything else. So it gives you the ability to farm out some of that work without opening up everything. And now we're installing some crazy things to get this all going. Again, we wanted to show this to you, all the advanced stuff. And remember, this is the hard way. We're doing this as hard as possible, and it's still this easy for the directory replication stuff. Microsoft has done a tremendous job with these tools. I'm really impressed.
I agree. So now, here's where we're going to break from doing the hardest thing possible. We're not going to federate with ADFS today. That's part 3.
Yeah.
We're simply going to do password synchronization. We want to be up and running. We want to show you how to do this if you're not doing ADFS. We'll get to ADFS in part 3. Maybe. Probably. I think, but yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah.
So here we are. This is going to be enter our Azure Active Directory credentials. This is going to be the account that I created the Azure Active Directory with. So there's my admin at jhtkfund.onmicrosoft.com account. I want to use that onmicrosoft.com account specifically because that is a cloud-only user at this point.
Yeah, and you don't need to use a cloud-only user, but this user right now is the only one that has the permission in our tenant to do the things that this needs to be done. So that's why we chose to use that one.
You know who taught me that? Scott Hogue, Mr. Ciphertext himself. Great guy, really, really bright when it comes to Azure Active Directory. Very helpful. And I was banging my head against the wall for quite a while. He hooked me up and helped me out. So here we are. So we're going to go ahead and connect our Active Directory. For this one, I do need to use that sync account, or I can set it up with another account, but for what we're doing here, I'm going to go ahead and connect my directories up. So I'm going to use the JHTK Fun sync account.
Yep. Typing the domain in.
Yep.
Important step.
I would have thought that I wouldn't need to because Forest is listed there, but since it actually asks for it, I decided not to get an error message.
Yeah, and you could have multiple domains in the Forest. Yep. And the other thing to look at this is we've already got one domain in there, and we could add more. We can do multiple domains, so it's not single domain, which is an important step for large companies.
Alrighty.
Yep, so now it's going out, it's verifying that account has the permissions that it needs, things like that. It will stop you here if you put a bad account in or bad password. These are a couple of things. We don't normally recognize or recommend tweaking these. These are how Active Directory Connect keeps users straight and makes sure that they're unique and that they don't get walked over each other. And so you'll notice, like for that source anchor, you want to make that be an attribute that will never change because that's how that's the unique piece. So you can look at them, don't be afraid to poke around, but for goodness sakes, don't change anything unless you know for sure exactly what it is you're changing and why you're changing it.
Yeah, the object GUID should not be changing. So that's a really good one. They chose a good one for that.
Yeah.
And for user principal name, Todd, I don't know about you. I think user principal name is probably a pretty good setting to set here.
It doesn't take a lot to talk me into using the user principal name for the user principal name setting. No, I'm convinced pretty easily on that one.
Yeah. Alrighty. As far as filters are concerned, we're not going to filter anything for right now. We're not, we could go ahead and choose an OU. We could choose a security group. For right now, we're not going to do any of that. We're just going to simply flow right through because, again, we have 2 users in this domain. We may add a 3rd one here in a little bit, but for right now, that's all we've got.
And this is good for limiting the number of users. Like if you're doing SharePoint and you're doing OneDrive for Business, you've already got a domain group that has the users who are going to go out there, so you can limit that. You don't need to because you can only apply licenses to the people you have to, but this is a way to give you some control. If you do have a few thousand users, you can slowly roll this out. The other great thing is this is a wizard, and it's going to drop down some configuration stuff. So as you change your mind later on, you can rerun this wizard and change these settings, and it just adds them in. So it's super easy to update.
All right, let's go take a look at our optional features. So the optional features here, Todd, I've done most of the talking in this section.
I hadn't noticed, Jason, honestly. So this is another one of those great things that Microsoft has done with this product is they've added all these neat things. Now you'll notice a lot of them are under preview, and we're not going to play with them in this, but you've got this option now of password write back. So this is the ability that if somebody wants to change their password online using the online tools that Microsoft has, it will write it back to your Active Directory. Now, of course, your sync account needs to have permission to write, in your Windows AD. Things like that, user write back. So that means you could have, right now, if a user is created in Windows, it's pushed up to Azure. You can enable user write back, and the other direction will go. A user created in Azure will get created in Windows AD. If you're using some extended attributes, you can also sync those up. There's just a lot of options. And again, you don't have to do it all at once. You can come in here, check a couple, and then come back later. So this is another good one. The important thing about this is that second checkbox that says enable staging mode. That lets you set it up without actually kicking it in. This doesn't have any kind of built-in fault tolerance or highly availability settings. So you could do this on a second box, give it the same settings as your primary, but put it in staging only. And then if your primary box dies and you don't have time to fix it, you can come over here, uncheck that staging box only, and then your second box will start syncing. That's not a great highly available option, but it's better than nothing. And now this is going out and creating things. What this is really doing in the background is doing a pretty scary thing. It's setting up Forefront Identity Manager, or FIM, and it's creating the management agents and all that for FIM. And we will show you that either in this section or the next one. We'll see. It's depending on how generous we're feeling.
There it is, restarting the Microsoft Online Sign-in Services Sign-in Assistant for us. I love this one. The blue box here to sync your Windows 10 domain joined computers. Some great options there.
Yeah, that's one cool thing that Azure AD will do is starting with Windows 10 and all future versions of Windows, you'll be able to add to Azure AD. You won't need Windows AD.
So we're going to take a look and see if everything has synced up yet. Looks like not quite yet. So let's go over.
Thought we were going to have some accounts, Jason. What did we do wrong?
Well, let's go into Office 365. Right now we're in Azure. And I'm an Office 365 guy these days. So let's see, maybe Office 365 loves us a little bit more.
So? Maybe. I hope so. I could use a little love right now.
Hey, how about that?
Oh, look at all that love. Hey. And the other great thing is you can see that status. So you can easily tell which users are synced from Active Directory and ones that are created natively in the cloud.
I want to check and see. Azure should be loving us by now.
Why wouldn't Azure love us? We're lovable guys.
Well, you are. I don't know about me. I try to be. Oh, there we go. All right. How about that? Now, sourced from a local Active Directory. A little bit different terminology here. As opposed to a Windows Azure Active Directory, a local Active Directory. As opposed to synced with Active Directory. So it's slightly different between the two interfaces, but that's okay. You're probably not going to be using both consoles to take a look. Yeah. And now, in order to manage these users anyway, you have to do it from an Active Directory on-prem. So we sync these up. This guy, I like a little bit more control over our world, Todd, so I think I should be a global admin.
I don't know that I appreciate you usurping this. This looks like a very deliberate power grab, and I'm frankly.
Well, it is the JHTK fund domain. Since I registered the domain, I get the initials first. So
I thought that was just because we went alphabetically. I didn't. Oh, jeez.
Oh yeah. I'll buy you ice cream next time we're together. It's okay.
Oh, I love ice cream.
So here we go. Now, the other thing I want to do is I want to assign an E3 license. I'll get you one. Don't worry. I only have one available right now. I'm going to go ahead and select it and add that in. I'll add 2 more by the time we actually go live with this, so you'll be able to be a real boy and be able to send me emails and all that fun stuff. But for right now, we're going to go ahead and set that up. It's going to prepare my mailbox for use. So let's go ahead and log in.
And these are things with all those PowerShell tools that Jason set up ahead of time. You can do all these things through there too. You can assign licenses, things like that. So you can start automating this process. So you bring a new user on, add them to your Windows AD group that gets synced, check later, give them a license, that kind of stuff.
Sounds like a really great thing for us to do as a part of Section 3, Part 3 of this webinar. What do you think?
The third part of the trilogy.
Yeah. So since I hadn't set this up before, I did have to go in. I have no email But because I'm a global admin, I have the admin console. I can go in and I can take a look and do all of that fun stuff here as well. I am a fully fleshed out account, and we're all healthy, and we now have synced users. You know, we may put an Easter egg in this section. We may wait. All right, so here we go. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and create a new account, a new user account. Let's see, you know, this since I'm using his office today, I guess I'll create one for Shane Young, but I can't be super nice to him, otherwise he wouldn't know it was me. We'll create him as Chuckles at jhgkfund.com. You okay with that one, Todd?
That's the nicest thing anybody's ever called him.
Alrighty, so we're going to go ahead and set his password as you know, fun guy 1 here.
His passwords are usually Todd is ugly, I hate Todd, things like that. So this should be very easy for him to type.
There you go. So we're on our domain controller. Let's flip back over to our Azure Active Directory server. And we're going to go in here into the Azure AD sync bin and run the sync client, the directory sync client cmd.exe tool. This is done, Todd, you mentioned this is actually a timer job usually.
Yeah,
but we're running it right now.
Yeah, so this is set to run by default every 3 hours. So every 3 hours the sync runs. But in cases of like this, when you've got a new user, you want them to show up right away, or in case you do something like fire somebody or change a password or something, you can go in and run that executable and it will do a one-off sync. So it's good to know that. On the boxes that I set this up with, I usually put a shortcut on the desktop for that because you can just kick it off and then you'll see our shameful user Chuckles will show up here in a moment.
There you go. So he showed up in Office 365. Now he's here in Azure as well. The other tool that we were showing there was the FIM tool, and we can see successfully added. It did add one account there. It synced it up and did a delta change, and that is the end of that.
Yeah, and we'll get more into FIM in part 3 of the trilogy.
Oh, he's awake. Oh, man, I was going
to
start poking fun at you.
The soothing baritone of my voice just lulls me right into just goodness.
Hopefully that was useful for folks. Shane just came by and as he was heading out for the day, saw the Chuckles thing, and he chuckled, actually. I thought that was quite nice.
He chuckled at Chuckles. That's so unoriginal of him. He should have guffawed at Chuckles.
Yeah, well, he did say to put it on Mr. Underhill's credit card, on Mr. Underhill's Amex. So
on the Underhill's bill, yeah.
Yep.
So hopefully that got everybody up to speed on getting Azure AD Connect set up. And we've been telling you for 2 weeks now how easy it is. The fact that two idiots like us could do it and make it look easy just is a great testament to how easy it is. For the third week, we're going to kind of go over some advanced things, some troubleshooting things, where to look for trouble. I've got a great story about how I broke one of my own sync setups between all my Office 365 tenants. And probably if we have some time, go over some PowerShell that we've used as part of this and things that we use when we're setting this up and managing it and all that.
So we'll endeavor to do ADFS as well. We'll see if we can get that to cooperate nicely. We'll probably do another little video recording, a little shorter this time. Now that we've done the basics, less talking by me in the recording, the whole 9 yards, Yeah. It's what happens when I stay up all night working on this stuff for you folks and drink a gallon of coffee before Todd and I do the voiceover. So with that said, trying to be respectful of everybody's time. The other thing that you'll need, if you want to play along in part 3 and do the ADFS portion, you are going to need an ADFS server. If you were doing this in real life, you'd probably want 2 AD servers, 2 ADFS servers, some proxies, whole 9 yards. For right now, we're going to add a 3rd server in, get an SSL cert. We get ours from digicert.com. As MVPs, they're really nice. They give us free certificates to be able to do demos and stuff like that. So we want to make sure we give them a plug. And with that, we want to make sure that we get you guys off the line on time. We'll be here sticking around for a few extra minutes to do some Q&A. But Todd, a lot of fun. Looking forward to doing one more of these with you. I think that's going to be next. What's the date on that?
So see the 6th, carry the I think the 13th. I think let's do it on the 13th.
I gotta
Does
take
that
off
work
my
for you?
shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works.
Yep.
I think that can work. Yeah, I think.
And Joanne in the chat room asked, this is recorded, so you can go back out and watch this afterwards. I know you'll want to and pause it in all your favorite spots and all that. But yes, you can get recordings for this and last week's as well.
Alrighty. With that, we will go ahead and sign off the webcams and the audio and stick around in the chat room for a little bit. Thank you guys very much.
Thanks. See you next week.